Fellas, in the UFC, at least to a casual audience, grappling's kind of viewed as this boring fight style. A lot of people don't really want to watch grappling, they want to see the fighters stand up. But there are a few fighters in the UFC who genuinely make grappling look fun. Sometimes I'd actually rather watch them grapple than strike because of how fun their grappling is. This could just be due to domination or the fact that they get submissions super quickly. So today we're going to be taking a look at some of the funnest grapplers in the UFC. As always, let me know if I missed any fighters out or any, obvious grapplers out, or if you agree with the fighters on this list. But we're going to go in there with the first grappler, who's Charles Oliveira. I don't think this one needs too much explaining. He's definitely one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC. The fact that he's able to get finishes and submissions out of nowhere is insane. I mean, we talk about Paul Craig as being this kind of fighter with a surprise factor, but I feel like Charles Oliveira's surprise factor is much better because Paul Craig, he's kind of the type of guy, he can't really take you down, he can't drop you on the feet, whereas Oliveira can do both of those things. At least on the feet, he can drop people, and he's genuinely got the biggest submission threat in the UFC. More submissions in UFC right now as well. And yeah, he can pull a submission off anytime. The submission he got over Justin Gaethje after dropping him, the submission he got over Dustin Poirier. He's one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC because, like I said, of the surprise factor. Now, him against Islam obviously dominated him when it came to grappling, but still, Oliveira will always have the surprise factor when it comes to grappling. And just as a fighter overall, it's not necessarily striking or grappling, but as a fighter overall, he's just got amazing surprise factor, amazing finishing ability. But I'm going to go Charles Oliveira because when he wins, it makes us feel like we're winning. I've said this before, and that doesn't really tend to, go into his grappling, but the fact that he's able to get these quick submissions, even in fights that he tends to be losing as well. The Poirier one where he lost the first round after getting dropped multiple times. The Gaethje one where he got dropped a few times as well. He always faces adversity in every fight, but always manages to come back with a submission as well. He's also got really good submission defense as well. I know obviously he got submitted by Islam, but if we look at the Michael Chandler fight where he nearly got submitted by a guillotine, he was able to escape that as well. And yeah, he just has a massive surprise factor. Never really in boring exchanges as well. I feel like with Charles Oliveira, his grappling's never really boring. It's never just laying on people and, hoping for their best. It's genuinely him locking up a submission, or he's about to get a submission, or not. Or if not, it's him just absolutely beating the shit out of opponents due to ground and pound. Charles Oliveira, for me, definitely one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC. The only time he's ever really had problems grappling recently, at least, is obviously the Islam Makhachev fight, and who knows, maybe Oliveira's going to somehow pull out with that submission out of nowhere in the rematch. But Charles Oliveira, for me, definitely one of the funnest submission artists and the funnest grapplers in the UFC. So I'm going to put him number one. Not in any order, by the way. It is in an order, but I'm not ranking this from the best grappler to the worst. This is just a random list. But yeah, Oliveira has to go in the list. One of the funnest fighters in the UFC, and I genuinely enjoy watching him grapple. Next fighter, Brendan Allen. He fought this weekend against Paul Craig, and it was some of the funnest grappling I've ever seen. The thing I like about Brendan Allen is the fact that it's so dominating with his grappling. No one can stop it. He's so dominating with his grappling. He's always changing positions, always looking for something. It's never just him laying on people trying to find points. He's always trying to find a submission or find a way to ground and pound his opponents, and he's always active on the ground as well. He's not just a lay and pray fighter. Paul Craig is a scary submission surprise factor. I talked about him a few minutes ago. He might not be the most complete fighter, but he definitely has the surprise factor. Brendan Allen just went in there and absolutely dominated Paul Craig when it came to grappling. And Paul Craig is meant to be this submission specialist, and Brendan Allen made him look like a rookie on the ground. He's also the rear naked choke master. All of his last 3 fights are finished by rear naked choke. I think he's got the most rear naked choke finishes in the UFC as well. So that's a little record going on for him. So he's got the best rear naked choke in the UFC, and he gets a submission in nearly every fight. It's never really like we get to see Brendan Allen go the distance in a lot of his fights. He's a prospect, but he gets a finish in nearly every single fight by submission. So he's definitely definitely got good finishing ability when it comes to grappling, and he honestly poses a threat to other grapplers in the division. Khamzat Chimaev, even a Bo Nickel, if Bo Nickel, gets a couple of wins and comes down. Other grapplers in the division, he's genuinely a big threat to them, and I could see him getting a lot more submissions, and maybe we'll see Brendan Allen become champion one day. He has already fought Sean Strickland, and he did get TKO'd, but that was a while back, and I can't wait to see that rematch, because Brendan Allen, not only is he, a dominating grappler, but he's just a fun one, man. He's never really in boring fights as well. Yes, most of them do contain grappling, but it's not boring grappling, it's fun grappling. and he gets a submission in nearly every fight. So I'm definitely going to include Brendan Allen for being one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC. Next grappler, Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, again, this guy is just a human highlight reel when it comes to grappling. He just ragdolls and slams everyone, and that's what I like about him. Now, even against Kamaru Usman, that was an interesting first round because there was so much kind of questions in that first round. Is he going to submit Kamaru Usman? It was kind of like we were waiting for Khamzat Chimaev to lock up a submission, and that's why I feel like Khamzat Chimaev's a fun fighter. He's not just the guy that's going to, you know, take you down and lay on you and use dominating grappling to get a points decision. When has this guy ever had a boring fight? The Kevin Holland fight picks him up immediately in the beginning of the round, the first couple of seconds, slams him, throwing him about like he's absolutely nothing, ragdolling him. This guy's the definition of ragdolling opponents until eventually he gets Kevin Holland down and locks in a submission on him. Gilbert Burns fight, one of the best fights of 2022. You know, even his fights before that, the Li Jingliang one where he picks him up and finds a submission. This guy is one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC. He's an absolute mauler, and his grappling is the reason he's such a big star, I guess. And he's got scary submissions as well. He's one of the biggest submission threats in the entirety of the UFC, and that's why I feel like if Khamzat Chimaev was to face Israel Adesanya, I'd probably have to go with Khamzat Chimaev by a finish by submission in the first 2 rounds because he nearly submitted Kamaru Usman. And Kamaru Usman, for me, not even just for me, it's a fact, he's a much better grappler than Israel Adesanya. And he's also a much, stronger frame. Adesanya's got good takedown defense, but his biggest takedown defense has gone against Marvin Vettori and I guess Derek Brunson back in 2018. Khamzat Chimaev, in my opinion, in the first round, would maul Israel Adesanya and find that submission, and that's why I feel like he's one of the funnest grapplers, because of the threat of the grappling. And if you're not a great grappler going against Khamzat Chimaev, and it's not like being a great grappler will save you as well, as we saw with Kamaru Usman, but if you're not like an A tier, S tier grappler in the division, you're going to get mauled. And that's why I like it, because when you're going against Khamzat Chimaev, it kind of feels like his opponents are a lamb going to get slaughtered, because there's not much you can really do against this guy. Even good takedown defense ain't going to stop it because he's so strong. His takedowns come from everywhere, slams and ragdolls his opponents, and he's one of the funnest fighters and most exciting in the UFC. Like, I can't wait to watch Khamzat Chimaev, not because of his striking, but because of his grappling. So I'm going to include Khamzat Chimaev in this list. Next fighter, Pantoja. Yeah, this guy's got some of the scariest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the UFC. He hits like a truck, but I love the way that he mixes in his grappling and his striking. It's not like every couple of rounds he'll choose to grapple and then choose to strike. I love the fact that, he might rock his opponent on the feet, and then once his opponent's kind of recovered, then he'll go for the takedown, or he'll drop his opponent and then latch onto his back, kind of like a Charles Oliveira, and look for the submission from there. I honestly thought he was going to submit Brandon Moreno in that fight. I think I predicted Pantoja to win by submission because he's got such a big submission threat, and I genuinely believe he's going to submit Brandon Royval as well. He makes every fight a scrap, and that's what I love about Pantoja. He's one of the funnest fighters in the UFC. I know I've said that a few times, but he honestly is one of the funnest fighters in the UFC. If you watch a Pantoja fight, you'll understand what I mean, and I'm going to focus on grappling because that's kind of the point of the video, but every single one of his fights are fun. It's always a war, and he's always mixing in grappling, and a lot of the time he's getting submissions with his grappling as well. He's got scary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's strong as well. He's insanely strong for the flyweight division. And if this guy's on your back, there's not much you can really do. If Pantoja's on your back, you've kind of got to call it quits there or wait for the round to end, because this guy, he can find submissions from everywhere. So I'm going to include Pantoja. I'm going to pick him to win against Brandon Royval at UFC 296 as well because of his grappling, and he's one of the most dominant grapplers in the flyweight division. I think he submits Kara France. I honestly think this guy will rule the division for a while. He's already beaten a couple of the people in the division, but yeah, I'm going I think Pantoja is definitely one of the best grapplers in the UFC and definitely one of the funnest as well. Next fighter, Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria, people don't really view him as a grappler because of how good his striking is, and that kind of says a lot about his grappling as well. The people are always focused on his dangerous striking. He's got really, really crisp boxing. He's got knockout power. If you're not good on the feet, he's going to absolutely batter you like he did to Josh Emmett. But people always forget about his submission threat. They'll think what he did to Bryce Mitchell. Now, Bryce Mitchell isn't a bad grappler by any means. Bryce Mitchell, as crazy as he is, he's not a bad grappler, but it was so satisfying. And that's what I said. I think Ilia Topuria deserves to make the list after what he did to Bryce Mitchell. The way that he was just able to submit him dominate him on the ground and ragdoll him. That clip where he just absolutely ragdolled Bryce Mitchell when Mitchell tried wrestling him. He's honestly one of the best grapplers in the featherweight division, and that's why I don't feel like Volkanovski is just going to take him down and dominate him like he did to Yair Rodriguez, because Ilia Topuria is still an insane wrestler, and he makes his grappling effective as well. It's not like he just goes for the takedown whenever he wants to. Like I said with a couple of the other fighters on this list, he makes it effective when he needs to go for the takedown, when he feels like it's the right time, like he did in that fight with Josh Emmett where he took him down and nearly submitted him. He makes his grappling extremely effective, and he's so good at mixing in his grappling and his takedown, his grappling and his striking as well. And he's just got S-tier wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Big jiu-jitsu threat, big wrestling threat, and who knows, maybe we might actually see Ilia Topuria out-grapple Volkanovski when they fight at UFC 298. Maybe we'll see, I think it's 297 actually, I don't know which one it is, but maybe we're going to see Topuria go out there and ragdoll Volkanovski, who knows, but Topuria for me, one of the funnest grapplers in the UFC, can't wait to see him fight, and yeah, you've got to respect this guy. And the final guy on this list, Sergey Spivak. After what happened at UFC Paris, it's understandable why you might not like him, but I actually really enjoy watching Sergey Spivak grapple. I love the kind of style that he has where he kind of clinches opponents, trips them, lets them get back up, and then just drags them down again. It's just so satisfying to watch him wear opponents out like he did with Greg Hardy and Derek Lewis. It's just really satisfying to see this guy grappling ragdoll opponents. Like, he's not just this, he's a bit of a weird grappler. He's not just the type of grappler to, you know, take you down, keep you down and find a submission. He's the definition of wearing an opponent out. Once this guy's got hold of you and he's got grip of you, he's not letting you go. And he kind of lives up to the nickname Polar Bear. He'll maul you. He'll take you down, drag you down. Once you think you finally got back up and you're finally safe, and you know you've just used a lot of energy, he'll just drag you back down again, absolutely drain your stamina, and then once you're too tired, he'll either absolutely batter you with ground and pound, or he'll find a submission like he did with Derek Lewis. I'm excited to watch Spivak fight. He might not have the best personality in the UFC, and he might not be the best striker, but when this guy's got hold of you and he's dragging you down, it's honestly one of the best grappling. It's one of the funnest and most exciting grappling displays in the UFC. The only problem with Spivak, like I said, he's not the most normal grappler. He's not the type of guy to go for takedowns. It's more just clinching and slamming and getting hold of you, kind of using judo a lot. And obviously that didn't work against Cyril Gane, so I hope this guy's able to find... I don't know who he's going to fight next. Even if this guy was matched against Volkov, I don't mind who he's against, but it's just satisfying to see this guy grapple. So I'm going to include Spivak. He can't really do it against elite opponents, but at least against that kind of mid-tier opponents, he's able to ragdoll them. But yeah, that's my list for the funnest grapplers in the UFC. Let me know if I missed anyone out or if you agree with this list. And yeah, thank you for watching.